A lot of people consider this to be their favorite Star Wars story. Here's Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. So after they blew up the Death Star, the Empire still knew where their base was. So the rebels had to pack their crap up and move to this planet. Hoth, a snowy planet that just sounds terrible. And to make matters worse, Darth Vader wants to find the pilot that blew up the Death Star. Like, really bad. Why? Well, he smashed his toy, and now he wants to beat him up. He had to just sit and wait for a ride after a really long time after Han shot him into space. Anyway, Luke and Horn are out riding their horn. Llama's looking for life forms behind. Wants to ignore the probe that just landed from a Star Destroyer and goes home. Luke is then immediately attacked by the abominable snowman. And this is within range of Han being able to hear him. John goes back to the base to give his report and says that he needs to leave. He still hasn't paid off Jabba, so there's a bounty on him. So he wants to go himself. Instead of sending somebody Jabba doesn't want to kill. He runs around telling everybody who's going to take off. And Leia's like, that's cool. And then he gets mad that she's not upset and tells her she has a crush on him and storms off as he's leaving. C-3PO tells him that Luke hasn't come back yet. The gate officer tells him that the temperature is dropping too fast to go out to look for Luke. And Han's like, well, that'll be two of us that might freeze to death, and goes out to look for him in the dark. So the abominable snowman took him to his cave and hung him like a slab of meat. But luckily he left his lightsaber right underneath him. So he uses the Force to pull it up to him. No, you don't get it. He didn't know he could do that. He just tried it and it worked. So he cuts himself down and somehow doesn't land on the lightsaber. Right. As the abominable snowman comes over to eat him. He cuts his arm off and runs out into the cold. Instead of killing the Whopper and staying in the cave where it's just a little bit warmer. So he wanders into the snow where he passes out, but gets woken up by the ghost of Obi-Wan, who tells him to go see Yoda in the Diego bus system. Then he rides up and his Tauntaun dies while he's checking them out. So Han uses Luke's lightsaber, Tacloban, and puts Luke at it like it's a sleeping bag. Oh, he had a pop-up tent, but the officers all thought he would freeze to death and even shut the front doors of the cave so they could stay warm. The next morning, the rebels take some ships out looking for their dead bodies, but find them alive and well. Apparently, the cure for hypothermia is putting somebody in the diaper and drowning them. Well, Han can't leave because they don't want any ships leaving until their shields are up. And John thinks it's because Leia has a crush on him. And she's like, oh, yeah. And kisses Luke to piss him off. They pick up a signal that's coming in, and after 3PO says it's an Imperial code, Han goes to take a look at, sees Chewie, and Han shoots it. So now the Empire knows there's something going on there. There's this one Imperial officer that thinks they're on Hoth. But his boss is like Darth Vader, insists that Skywalker is there, but I'm not sure how he knows his name. But then the boss looks at the officer like, you're going to get me killed, dude. So, Hans, you are still trying to repair the Falcon. Despite them trying to leave a bunch of times. And Luke is heading to Dagobah because of a hallucination he had when he was freezing to death. So the Imperials come out of light speed too close to half, so the rebels know that they're there. So if they would have just evacuated when they heard the signal, they could have had a clean getaway. But Hein had to shoot something. So now they're being attacked on moving day. They have to launch a ground assault, which pisses Vader off. So he force chokes the Admiral through the TV. He could show him through the TV. The rebels are trying to move, but the Empire's attacking with these big metal, long-legged dogs. The armor is too thick, so they decide to trip them with the towing cable. And somehow, now that they're on the ground, the armor is thinner and they're able to shoot them. The bases are crumbling, so Han needs to get Leia on the Falcon. Vader is there and just misses them as they escape, and conveniently the rebels move. Luke's X-Wing with R2 already loaded, and they had to Dagobah, and I guess Vader had all of his ships follow the Falcon because Luke has no problem getting off the planet. The Falcon is in trouble. Their hyperdrive is damaged, so they can't reach light speed. They have TIE fighters chasing them, so they head into an asteroid field. And let me guess, they go into it after somebody mentions how dangerous going into it is. The sad thing is in reality, the asteroids would be miles apart and this wouldn't be dangerous at all. They decide to hide in a hole on one of the bigger asteroids and kind of just wait it out. Luke gets to Dagobah and then all of a sudden his X-Wing gets stuck in the swamp and then tries to shoot Yoda. Well, he doesn't know it's Yoda, so Yoda messes with him and rifles through his crap, and Luke is kind of a dick to him. Yoda takes a bite of his dinner and then Luke throws it away because it has a bite taken out of it. He then tells Luke he knows how to find Yoda and takes him back to his mud hut back on the asteroid. They're still trying to get the ship working. In the meantime, John, only get a little close and then 3PO cocked blocks him. The Imperial ships are being pounded by asteroids, but Vader doesn't care how many of his people die as long as they find the Falcon. He sends the rest of his fleet in, but has his ship fall back so they can get better phone reception. The Emperor tells him that his son is the one who blew up, and he's like, the Emperor wants Vader to kill Luke, but he thinks he can turn him. So the Emperor's like. Even though 2 South African Rand is told to guard the camp, he followed them and is eavesdropping. Yoda keeps telling Luke to be patient, but he has a baby foot instead, showing Yoda exactly. Why isn't that to be a Jedi? Yoda reveals that he was just acting crazy to test Luke, and he tells Obi-Wan, who apparently was spying on them. Yoda tells Luke that he's been spying on him for his whole life and he's got a lot of nerve. You know what? All 3 of these guys have a lot of nerve. They know for a fact he's been hitting on his sister for years, and nobody's telling him. He's also too old to be brainwashed into not having emotions or attachments. But Obi-Wan insists. So Yoda makes him promise that he'll stay until he's done with his training. And he's like, hell, yeah, I will. So the Imperial fleet is getting desperate to find them and has resorted to just randomly dropping bombs on various asteroids. Lasses of mine knock outside and they go make sure they're not damaging the ship when they miss one. They realize that they're inside a giant worm that I guess leaves with its mouth open. Yoda makes Luke give them a piggyback ride and tells them to stop asking so many questions. There's this cave that Yurin tells Luke to go into, but tells him to leave his weapons. But he digs them anyway. So you can tell he's taking his training very seriously. Darth Vader comes around the corner and they have a weird slow motion fight that ends with Luke cutting his head off. The helmet explodes and he sees his own face. Sick of waiting, Vader holds a job fair for some bounty hunters to find the Falcon. But then the Imperial officers find them. But then they immediately lose them. So I guess they'll just keep the bounty hunters on retainer. Luke is levitating a rock while doing a handstand barb tells him the X-Wing is sinking. Unit tells him to use the Force to get it out and gets it to move a little, but then says it's impossible. And you're just like, watch this bitch, and gets it on land. Vader kills the officer that lost the Falcon. And we see that the ship is just sitting on top of the Star Destroyer. Their plan is to wait until they pollute space and then go hide in the garbage. It's a good thing they know they have a compactor because I doubt they get away with it next to some floating pizza boxes. They're planning on going to see this guy, Lando Calrissian, an old buddy of Horn's. But the bounty hunter Boba Fett, apparently parked in the garbage chute and follows them to the Cloud City. Luke is back in the handstand levitating some stuff, and Yoda tells him to visualize and he sees Han and Leia in trouble. He wants to go help them, but Yoda tells them that he promised to finish his training. They land the Falcon, but Lee has a feeling they should leave. Lando comes out and acts like he wants to fight Han. But then he hugs him. And the guards are like, alright, troops. This joke is over. Let's go. It seems that the Falcon used to belong to Lando and he's not happy. Lost on 3PO. Here's what he thinks is R2 in a closet and goes in to say hi but gets blown up instead. Luke has decided to go save his friends, but Yoda and Obi-Wan fear he'll turn to the dark side and tell them to remember the cave. But they also call it a failure. And I seem to remember Luke cutting Vader's head off, so wouldn't call it a total loss. Obi-Wan doesn't want to lose him to the dark side like Vader. But Anakin was manipulated for years. The Emperor is just using his friends as a trap. Luke still wants to go even after the ghost. Obi-Wan's like, if you go, you're on your own because you might go to the dark side. And it's best that I'm not there to help you stay on your path. Obi-Wan tells Yoda he's their only hope. But Yoda's like, did you forget he has a twin sister? And Obi-Wan's like, did you forget she's the one in danger? Chewie finds 3PO in the recycling center and tries to fight some little guys over his parts. Lando interrupts a conversation about Leia not trusting him, and then he takes them to Darth Vader, proving her right. They put you in a cage and decide to lock up 3PO too. Even though he's in pieces, they torture Han with a red light and Vader tells Boba Fett he can have Horned after he gets Luke. His plan is to carbon freeze Luke and take him to the Emperor, but he needs to make sure he'll live through the process. So they're going to freeze Han first. And just like Padme, since Han might die, Leia tells him that he doesn't really creep her out and that she really loves him. So they handcuff Han at the waist. Lando comes out and acts like he wants to fight Han. But then he hugs him. And the guards are like, alright, troops. This joke is over. Let's go. It seems that the Falcon used to belong to Lando and he's not happy. Lost on 3PO. Here's what he thinks is R2 in a closet and goes in to say hi but gets blown up instead. Luke has decided to go save his friends, but Yoda and Obi-Wan fear he'll turn to the dark side and tell them to remember the cave. But they also call it a failure. And I seem to remember Luke cutting Vader's head off so wouldn't call it a total loss. Obi-Wan doesn't want to lose him to the dark side like Vader. But Anakin was manipulated for years. The Emperor is just using his friends as a trap. Luke still wants to go even after the ghost. Obi-Wan's like, if you go, you're on your own because you might go to the dark side. And it's best that I'm not there to help you stay on your path. Obi-Wan tells Yoda he's their only hope. But Yoda's like, did you forget he has a twin sister? And Obi-Wan's like, did you forget she's the one in danger? Chewie finds 3. Luke claims that he's full of surprises, like losing his lightsaber very easily. He also goes right into the carbon chamber but jumps out when it's activated. Vader starts throwing stuff at Luke and he breaks a window and Luke gets sucked out. I thought he wanted to take him to the Emperor. Shut up. He's got to get him angry if he's going to turn him into a Sith. Everyone else gets back to the Falcon and they escape. Darth Vader wants him to join him and bring balance. It looks like. Nah, I don't think so. Luke is now going out to this platform with no exit, and he gets his hand cut off, but keeps going out further. He also tells them that Obi-Wan lied to him, and he's his father. I'm Anakin Skywalker. So what do you think? He wants them to rule the galaxy as father and son. So Luke jumps off the ledge, but luckily falls on the Santa that there's like. Well, I didn't see that coming. Luke uses the Force to call Leia, and she picks up. She knows he's in trouble, so they go back for him. Lando's surprised that she was right. And she's like, yeah, I can use the Force to get Luke and the Falcon, but they're still under attack. They try to go into light speed, but the hyperdrive is deactivated. R2 knows this, but he insists on repairing C-3PO instead. When he realizes they're in trouble, he fixes the hyperdrive. And C-3PO bitches about not being finished yet. I guess he forgot the asteroids are made to repair ships. Well, they end up getting away, and everyone's surprised that Vader doesn't kill anyone. So Luke gets a new hand, and Lando and Chewie go look for Han, even though they already know where Boba Fett is taking him. I can draw a map of how the Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a subscriber yet.